Yeah, let me introduce myself. I'm Patricia Uli. We have met actually almost exactly 10 years ago in São Paulo. We had an interview with you about 10
I
years ago.
remember your face. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I remember that day very well too. It was so amazing, the show we had that day, and it was a fantastic tour.
Was
So,
that the show with Michael Schenker, or which one?
yes. Yes, it was the show with Michael Schenker, the one that he actually left the stage earlier, and you
Don't
even came
remind
to
me.
talk to us about it. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
We have Roberta, which you have already met as well. Roberta.
Yes, of
I don't know if
course.
you remember me. The last time I saw you, it was in Germany, in your birthday, with Lars Peterson in the concert in Hanover.
Yeah, 2018.
I was there.
Yeah, cool.
Mari.
And Larissa from Wikimetal website. I think you already have an interview with Wikimetal, right?
Yes. Some years ago, I think one of my bosses interviewed you, Uli, but not me. I'm the only
I
one.
don't remember that. No, I don't remember.
Yeah, but I think it was via telephone, something like that. So
Oh,
I'm the
those
only
I
one who.
I particularly don't remember telephone.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got
Those
so
interviews
many,
are
and in
great.
the end, it's just it's easier to remember a face.
Yeah, but it wasn't me. I'm the only one who
Yeah,
hasn't
so it
met
was your
you
fault.
yet. So nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
Uli, do you feel comfortable if we leave our cameras on? Would you like to
Yeah,
turn
yeah,
everything
no,
off?
no, it's good to see you.
Okay.
So okay,
All right.
thank you for the interview. We'll start with Patricia, Pachi, the first question.
Well, our first question is about Patreon, that you have recently started a Patreon account. So we would like to know how that idea came up, and what will be available for the fans there, and about this first few days, how has it been?
Well, probably David can tell you just as much about it as I can, because he's been there from the beginning, haven't you? He doesn't seem to hear, does he?
No, yeah, I think he's just listening to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No.
David has been there. He mentioned he has been there with
David,
you, but
that was just a joke. A German joke, not very funny. Okay.
I think he
No,
doesn't still have that humor. He'll pick up on the humor soon.
yeah. He thinks everything I say is serious, but it's not. Sometimes it's serious. A lot of the time it's serious, but not always. So, anyways, the Patreon idea came about through a couple of my friends who said, because I'm not such a big fan of Facebook and all these things, and they said there's a way you can really interact with your fan base much more intimately and much more directly, and that's Patreon. So at first I thought, oh, it's just another one of these. So I didn't really take it seriously. But then I did take a look at it, and I thought, that might be a good idea. And sure enough, once we started doing it, I started to really enjoy it, Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time actually writing things for Patreon, for the Patreon channel, because it gives me the chance to be much more, how shall I say, more in depth. Like the normal internet is all about 5 minute attention span. And that's the opposite of what I'm like. I really don't like these short TikTok-y kind of things. I'm more the opposite. I want things to go deep. And a lot of people on Facebook, of course, are not geared that way. But the ones who come to my Patreon channel are. So I can actually, if there's a question, they ask a question, I can answer a little bit more in depth and more precisely, and I enjoy that. So yeah, that's really what's going on. It's a community that is developing there of the more, shall we say, more serious-minded, more dedicated music lovers, and I guess quite a few of them are also interested in my more esoteric things. the philosophy, the teaching, and all that. And incidentally, on Sunday, we're going to have our second Zoom conference. Will you be there, David?
Yeah, I try because I'm traveling on Sunday. But I
Oh,
think,
you're traveling.
yeah, but I think I will go there.
Okay, that would be cool. Yeah.
I will.
So does this answer your question, Patricia?
Yeah, so you've been having Zoom sessions with people. Is it more like a chat, like a free conversation chat? Will you also
it's a
be
bit of
offering anything?
It's a bit of everything. Well, it's really cool that you're able to speak we're all in the same room. Some are in Tokyo, some are in Osaka, Singapore, Sao Paulo, Hamburg, and England. So that's nice. And a lot of the ones on Patreon, I've known them for a long time. Some of them are my close friends also are on there. And so we're chatting, they're asking questions. It's also about certain subjects, And last time I also played a little bit on the guitar. That's a thing that's developing now, actually. We're going to open a new tier on Patreon, especially for guitar players, because a lot of my audience are guitarists themselves, and so there's a lot of interest there. And some of them are quite good, or actually very good as players themselves. In fact, on our Patreon channel, I think at least 13 or 14 people own Sky guitars. So it makes sense. We're going to do dedicated workshops on Patreon, like once a month. I'm going to sit down for, say, an hour with the guitar, and it's basically like an online master class where I'm demonstrating my most important guitar leads, starting from the Scorpions to Electric Sun, and so all those guitar leads that kind of got me from one level to the next, because it's like a story written in these albums. Just the guitar techniques alone, they developed over the years, when starting from Fly the Rainbow over in Trance, back into Electric Sun, and then more advanced in Sky of Avalon, culminating, I think, in the Metamorphosis. And so I'm going to pick the most important guitar solos and take them apart and really demonstrate how it's done, including also giving some sheet music and backing tracks. So the guys can then work on the music themselves, and we'll also give them the opportunity to play something, to play in front of the camera, and then I will give my 2 cents, and give some advice maybe about what might, be improved, etc. So that'll start very soon. Yeah, I'm going to explain more about that in that next Zoom meeting.
All right.
Uli, you always find ways to be close to your fans, just like the Patreon page, also meet and greets. And I'd like to know, as an artist, what do you learn from your audience in these encounters?
I'm actually learning a lot because, and it's important for me to communicate with. Well, first of all, I love communicating with people, full stop. I tell you what I don't like, and this is where I've gotten a problem with a lot of the social media. I don't like it when it's just so superficial and not real, or or just surface level encounters. Okay, I'm fine with small talk, but really, in the end, I find it a little boring. So I like to communicate like really one-on-one with people. So in the meet and greets, or in these encounters on Patreon, where people can really write their messages, and I will tune in and try to understand what people are saying, because that's very important to me. Because as an artist, it's all about resonance. I'm not just doing it for myself. It's not just a self-gratification thing. Of course, some of it is because I love to do what I love to do. But if there wasn't an audience, then it would be pointless. It's almost like, I'm catching a butterfly. Not that I would ever catch a butterfly, but figuratively speaking, going to the garden, I'm catching a beautiful butterfly. I'm bringing it home. I want to show it to my friends, right? If I just look at it myself, it's great, but it's much nicer if you actually share it with other people. It's the same with the music, or if I have a great idea, yeah, I'd like to share it with an audience, because that's also my job and that's my calling. I'm a person who goes out finding butterflies and bringing them in to share with people. And the kind of butterflies that I find are probably quite different from those that another artist finds, and some people prefer my butterfly, and or the type of butterflies that I bring, or the way I present them, or whatever. So it's all about resonance, and the meet and greet gives me a good kind of sense of reflection, because then sometimes people will just say a couple of words, and maybe I don't get that much info, but sometimes they will tell me a little story, and it brings it home to me. Also, it's nice to see that certain things that we've toiled over in the studio, that they actually do resonate with people, and they do have a meaning to somebody else. I guess it's a two-way thing.
Yeah, I had another question that I think that it's a perfect follow-up for what we're talking about here. So excuse me, guys, for breaking the order, but you just told us how important it is to share and how music is meant to be shared, and you're not doing it just for yourself. However, I wonder how you find balance in this, because when you decided to leave Scorpions and start Electric Sun, I think most of your audience was quite disappointed or surprised with the new sound direction. So how do you find the perfect balance between your artistic passion and the fans as well?
It's true. When I left the Scorpions, a lot of people expected me to do basically just more of Virgin Killer, or more of Sensuron, and stuff like that. So the first album, particular, Earthquake, was completely, well, not completely, but it was in some ways almost the opposite kind of statement. And it took time. In the years afterwards, the albums got more recognition, and they were, because people didn't compare them to the Scorpions anymore. But initially that was a problem. It's always a problem when you are developing as an artist, particularly when you are growing your when you are kind of expanding your repertoire, language, and ways of expression. It's almost like it's a very human thing that we all tend to have certain expectations. If I go and have a meal at a pizza place, I'm expecting to have pizza there, or Italian spaghetti, etc. I would be surprised to find a chow mein on the menu, So if Scorpions has a certain something, and the Scorpions fan base love that, it's like, okay, we love that kind of music, Now, there's one of the main members suddenly moves away, and he opens another restaurant, and there's no Scorpions pizza, but suddenly there's like maybe I don't know your traditional foods and in your country, in Brazil, but you know what I mean. Basically, the expectation that was there is not fulfilled. So that's part of the answer. It's all to do with expectations. Now, in later years, when people have, when the expectations are forgotten and people go into my restaurant again, they might say, oh, it's not Scorpion's pizza, but it's something quite different. And if we don't expect pizza, maybe it's not so bad. See it for what it is. And that's exactly what happened with my electric sun period. People started to accept it after some time, because they realized, oh, this is not Scorpions, it's something completely different. But you see, when as an artist, when you grow, and meaning you go into places that you haven't been before, and you bring back all sorts of new types of butterflies or other beautiful flowers or whatever, you can only bring those that you're finding. If I basically, you have to stay true to yourself. So that's what I did. I wanted to go into certain places, and some of the audience followed me, and they thought it was cool, the things I was finding. But they were not the same butterflies that you would find in a scorpion's zoo or garden. That's all. I have to stay true to myself. In fact, I don't know any other way, because if I tried to do something just to please the audience, I think it would backfire, because I wouldn't even know how to do it. The only reason why I'm even remotely successful is because I've always kind of followed my instinct. And sometimes it brings me to places that people can relate to, and sometimes it brings me to places that people or less people can relate to, or nobody can relate to. I have to go there anyways. That's my job as a pathfinder, kind of to say, So sometimes maybe I will open a door that a lot of people can relate to, and sometimes I walk into the next garden and then people don't want to go there. Maybe they want to go there in 50 years' time. It happens. Sometimes the time isn't right for certain ideas, because there is such a thing as, in Germany we say Zeitgeist, which means the spirit of the time we live in. And a lot of people are very much in tune with that, particularly when they're younger at a certain time. And then afterwards, they seem to become more like themselves, and they may be not so beholden to the zeitgeist anymore, And I'm a person who, I'm aware of this zeitgeist, but I also like to go outside of it and beyond it. And sometimes maybe I will go too much into the future. Sometimes I will go too much into the past. But both of these places can be very interesting, Anyways, you could talk about this subject for a long time. It's a very interesting subject, I find. Did this in any way answer your question, or was it too far
Yeah,
out?
it does.
You have just finished writing a book, right? What
Yeah.
genre would you classify it as? You tell something about this in this book, or it's more about music or about biography? I don't know.
I tell you one thing, this book is impossible to classify. It doesn't fit into any category whatsoever. It is many things. It's 650 pages or so, with like 1,000 photographs and drawings and diagrams. But it's a very strange mixture of many different things. But there is an underlying thread in the book. And it's not autobiographical, so it's not about me, Uli Jon Roth, at all. But it came out of me. It's a result of my personal experiences in life, and particularly, it's a sum total of my life philosophy, if you may call it that. Like the things that I found to be important in terms of, well, the essence of what I found or experienced. and I've tried to put that into words, and it's become quite a story. It's a little bit like it's set up a little bit like a movie. There are stories within stories, and travels through a lot of different subjects. At the center of it,
maybe you can classify like Uli's mind.
I'm just doing it, David. At the center of it is my way of looking at music, and I found that this is something that's fascinated me ever since I started with music, that in the, I don't want to call it theory of music, but in the heart of music itself, which consists of many different things, harmony, rhythm, melody, and a whole bunch of other things, there are certain laws of that govern music, which makes music what it is. And I found that these laws are pretty much the same laws. They're virtually identical to the laws that govern pretty much everything else. Our life, ourselves, our minds, our spirits, even our bodies. The laws of music can be found everywhere. They're the same laws as mathematics, science. And while this may sound like a big hodgepodge, I tried to get some clarity into that, and I took it apart and broke it down to its fundamental components, like starting with frequencies of certain frequencies, certain notes, certain pitches have a different meaning and a different set of energies than others. Like to be more specific, in the Western musical system, we have 12 notes, and these 12 notes are like 12 different colors of a rainbow. And each of these notes has a whole bunch of attributes connected, which get activated whenever that note is being struck. And that's one thing. Those are the raw building materials, but it gets really interesting once you look at the combination between these. What happens when two notes interact together, or three in harmonies? And what happens and why does it happen? And why does it affect us deeply? Why do certain chords affect us in this way and certain chords affect us in that way? Why do certain rhythms do what they do? And why are there rhythms in the first place? It goes very far, and I'm spending some time in the book analyzing these things and putting out kind of like a framework and trying to explain it as good as I can to also non-musicians, because that's the difficult part. Some of it has to do with musical terms like octaves. Now, it's not so easy to explain an octave to somebody who doesn't play an instrument. Anybody who plays an instrument will say, sure, that's an octave. There's a major third, there's a minor third. But I found it difficult to explain that to non-musicians. But these things like octaves, phenomenons, octaves or major thirds and tritons are fundamentally important concepts that go way beyond music. So I was trying to show the importance of these things and how something like a triton, which is basically a combination of two opposing single notes played either together or in a succession, how this might actually appear in real life between people. Because people, to me, are also like musical instruments, and we all exert certain energies, which are, in the end, when you break it down, nothing less and nothing more than musical emanations and musical manifestations, So this is just one of many things to see the world through the eyes of music, and I found that fascinating. This is a starting point in the book, but it goes into all sorts of different, it branches out into different things. Like there's a lot of, I'm devoting a lot of time in the book about the human mind, how our mind interprets certain things and why it does so. All with with one aim above all is, and that is maybe interesting for all of us or for a lot of people, how we can utilize that knowledge about the metaphysical knowledge of music to improve our own cognitive functions, how we can basically grow eventually with the aim of even becoming better people, not just learning to be technically more adept at seeing things, understanding things, but also to find ways to understand ultimately what is right and what is wrong. That is one of the key questions in this book that I keep returning to. Because nowadays, a lot of people say there is no right, there is no wrong. Everything is, just relative. And to a degree, from a certain point of view, that is the case. But to me, music teaches me something completely different. It teaches me that there is an absolute right and wrong. In music, it's very easy. All you need to do is take a guitar, 6 strings, you play a chord, it sounds perfectly in tune. One of the strings, you tune it slightly down or up, and immediately the entire guitar is out of tune, with one ingredient being wrong. Now, if you know exactly which string it was and you tune it back, there is your answer. There is only one way to tune that guitar perfectly. There's a million ways to have it out of tune. And that's the big difference. To me, to every question, there's one perfect answer. And the fact that we often don't know what it is doesn't mean that the answer doesn't exist. A perfect answer is hard to come by, but music can teach us how to arrive at the perfect answer. Basically, what I'm saying is there is such a thing as a universal truth, which is like a fundamental truth, a truth of the universe, a higher truth of this is right and this is wrong. And there is a relative truth, which we find here on Earth. Like in Brazil, so you have certain laws, and maybe somebody steals a car, and that person has to go to prison for, I don't know, how long. In Germany, it's maybe totally different. With the Taliban, that person would probably be killed immediately. So these laws are human laws, they're relative. But that doesn't mean that any of them are ultimately right. I'm interested to find the ultimate truth. And that may sound like complete hogwash, but I believe there is such a thing as an ultimate truth. And what's even more fascinating to me is I believe that we are actually fully capable of finding it in ourselves, because every person has a deep connection to what is right and wrong. It's written into our conscience. It's very, very deep. But we all know what's right and wrong ultimately, but it's sometimes very hard to hear and to understand what it is, because when it comes to certain conveniences in life, it's not always an easy thing to listen to that which is right or wrong, because we might not like the consequences. We're all human, and sometimes we prefer to go the easy way. So, to cut a long story short, these are some of the subjects that my book deals with, and a lot of it is meant not so much as an instructional book, but as an inspirational book. It's supposed to take the reader onto a journey of self-discovery, and maybe some of my philosophical outpourings will be a little bit far-fetched for someone. that's not so important, but there may be other things in there that may be interesting for you. And that's what this book is all about. It's supposed to be an inspiration and to give some new potential angles and some new kind of thoughts.
That's
Yes.
interesting. Really. I remember you mentioned something like this book in that interview in 2013, right, Patricia?
Yes, absolutely.
And
I started writing it in 2011 on and off, and it went through several stages. I almost had one finished in 2016, and then I didn't like it because I wasn't able to find the right tone. There was something not quite right with it. The substance was there, but to me it was difficult to find the right way to present it. And the new one, the one I wrote during COVID, is based on my older versions, but it was completely written in a new way, and it was much more, how shall I say, free flow, more like a movie. The first books, they were more like more dry. What they had like perfect chapters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. They were very organized, and I thought that's not really what I want, because I don't really want a book like that's an instructional book. I wanted something else. I wanted an inspirational book. So I completely rewrote it, and it was really only possible because of COVID, or because I suddenly had all this time, and that's what I did. I wrote every day, and I did also the layout myself, like all the pictures, because I wanted it to be one single entity coming from one place. So you're right, Rebecca. I was already talking, because I remember when I was in Brazil that way, also, I was writing a lot at that time. In the hotel room, in the airplane, I was constantly writing. And it wasn't like every year. In some years, I wrote a lot more, and then I took a year off from the subject. And then I took several years off, and suddenly with COVID, I thought, now I'm going to do it. And that's it. That's how it happened.
all right. Do you think you're going to release it anytime soon, or you don't have any idea yet?
Finished. It's finished. We just have to find a good way of publishing it.
All right.
Not yet quite. I mean, I've got printed copy here, but we need to find a good way of how to release it to the public, and it's going to be sometime this year. Not sure when.
And do you think it's only available in English, or can be in different languages?
It will be initially only in English, and I tell you that once you start translating it, it's a bit of an economical problem, because a book like that, because it's so big, and it's quite large, it needs top quality print. If you just print a few copies, each of them costs $400. Just to have it printed. You need to print several thousand to make it affordable for people. Now, if you say, if someone translated it to Portuguese, we would have to print several thousand to make it even affordable. And that's a problem, because it's not a commercial book. It's not like Harry's Spare, it's the opposite, I think some people will find it very interesting, and some people will not find it interesting. So, but it's definitely not written for the mass market. It's not supposed to be commercial. It's supposed to be genuine. And but if you find somebody who wants to take the trouble to translate it to Portuguese and have it printed, be my guest. I would love it.
I know some people, maybe.
Yeah, but I think you probably need to find a couple of thousand. Otherwise, you would have to pay $200, $400 for a book if you just print a few. If you have like a few hundred, they are very expensive to print at good quality. That's just the law of economics, and there's not much I can do to change that. If I was somebody like Bill Gates or so, and had that kind of money lying around, I would print it myself and put it into every country, because to me, this book is not about making money. This book to me is, I want to spread these ideas and put it out there, so I would love to have it in Portuguese and in Spanish and Japanese, but right now, we will just have to live with the English version.
And Uli, would it be possible, maybe would you consider having it also as an ebook, maybe to make it more accessible to people around the world?
I tell you that there is a problem with it, because the layout is like a piece of art. Every 2 pages, I've really made sure that they are almost like a painting. And I don't want to release it without the artwork. Both things have been created side by side. I wrote the book, and at the same time, I created the layout. So it's very much an organic whole. Ebook readers are so pathetically bad when it comes to reproducing visuals. I think I couldn't inflict that on anybody, because it would take away too much of the potential of the book. Even, I sent some of my friends, in fact, David, I sent you a copy on a link which is InDesign, and still it's difficult, because even if you have a really big computer screen like I do, I've got a 75-inch monitor in front of me, it's a dream. It looks fantastic, you can read everything, but even a tablet is probably too small to have a proper double-page spread. You won't be able to read properly, and that's why I think it's not a good idea to do it that way. As much as I would like to disseminate it, I think the book would lose too much of its potential impact. Yeah.
What here with the book?
Yes. Well, you see how big it is. Yeah.
Yes.
And you remember how heavy it is? It's 3.4 kilos.
Yeah, it's so heavy.
Wow.
It's like a Bible.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm looking forward to see it. I hope Davi can show us someday. We're gonna visit Davi for sure soon, so
This one is.
take a look at
He
the book.
doesn't have it.
He
He did that at Dieter Dirk's place, because Dieter has a copy.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's not mine yet.
All right, we'll have to organize a trip to visit Dieter, and then we'll visit you as well, Uli. And then you can tell us all of it. Maybe you can read the books for us.
That would take quite a long time, believe me.
It'll be a whole new tour.
Hmm.
All right. Changing the
I tell
subject
you
a
one
little
thing,
bit.
I tell you, Patricia, I'm sorry to cut you off, but while we're on the subject, what I will do is, on my next tour, we're planning to do a tour which is called An Evening with Uli Jon Roth. So it's basically an evening with Uli Jon Roth, where I'm playing music, but I'm also speaking. And I'm going to open up every evening with what is called a TED Talk, if you know what a TED Talk is. So I'm going to talk about the book. I'm going to, on the big screen, we're going to display some of the pages. So I will do maybe 20, 30 minutes talking about the book, laying the groundwork. So that's as close as anyone will get to that. But as I said, because the book doesn't fit into any category known to man, it's not even going to be easy to break it down into half an hour. At the moment, I've got no idea how to do it. I will need I will need a lot of inspiration and guidance to do that.
Yeah. No, it's a huge project for sure.
It is quite a big project, yeah.
Yeah. No, but I've been meaning to ask you about now your more recent plans. You have this month, you have the 70 Tons of Metal Festival, right?
Yeah.
right in the end of January. And I would like to know, because this is such a specific festival where all the bands, the crew, the fans are together in one place. You have done this before in 2017, and I would like to know from you, like, how is this any different experience from regular festival, since like everybody's literally stuck on the same boat, you know?
This is the third time. This is going to be the third time, because I was also part of the very first 70,000 tons, which was in 2011.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
Yes, and I've done a lot of such cruises with also the Wacken people, you know, what are they called, metal cruises or whatever they're called. And we've done several in the Mediterranean, the North Sea, going up to Oslo, England, etc., etc., etc. So I'm very used to that. Um, I've had nothing but good experiences so far. It's normally a very enjoyable few days out on sea, where yes, you're right. You're sharing, you know, the in the cafeteria, everybody's having lunch or dinner together with the fans and the bands. In the bar, you meet the fans, you meet the other musicians, you know, you're hanging out. There are sessions. There is there are all sorts of things, you know, and each band plays at least 2 or 3 shows. There's usually one big show on the pool deck, which particularly in the Caribbean is out of this world, because I remember the first time we did it, it was one of the nicest concerts I can ever remember having played, because it was in the middle of the day. The pool deck was full of people and the sun was burning and the wind was, there was such a strong breeze. It was just amazing, magical. So I'll never forget that, particularly that first show on 70,000 tons. Then they usually have a very big theater, which holds over 1,000 people, state of the art, and each band also plays one show in the theater. Then very often you get a club kind of type show, which is slightly smaller. And last but not least, on this boat, I'm actually also doing a very brief Sky Academy kind of thing in one of the upstairs venues, where I'm going to be talking about the book briefly, and I'm going to play some of the songs that I don't play with the band, you know, just myself and my computer, you know, and the screen. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's also nice to get away when in this dreary time of the year, you know, which is not my favorite. Having a little bit of sunshine in Miami and the Bahamas. Yep, absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I assume it must be very exciting. I've never had the chance to attend the 70 tons of metal, 70,000 tons of metal festival. But I assume it must be a very special experience, you know, for
Yeah,
fans
I
and
mean,
bands together.
Patricia, particularly, I think if you've never experienced it, it's quite something. I can actually really recommend it. And that's not the only one they're also doing Monsters of Rock cruises. And yeah, the Wacken people are doing their metal cruises. All of them are very, very similar. The difference is, I think, where they go to. Like the 70,000 tons is always in the Caribbean. Like the first one, I remember, went to a little island in Mexico, Cozumel, you know. And of course, I mean, the Caribbean is, to me, it's just amazing. I love it there. I don't know if I would like to live there, but yeah, that's really nice. But then again, I mean, I'm talking to people who live in Brazil. You don't have like dreary winters like we do here in the UK, you know. So yeah, you probably don't even know the difference, because with you the sun always shines in Sao Paulo and Rio, and doesn't it?
Salvador, even more, Bahia for the V.
Well, that's where David is. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's always summer where David lives.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I would always want summer, so I do enjoy the seasons in Europe, but
Yeah.
winter gets quite, I don't know, the short days and when it's dark and rainy, it's not my cup of tea, as we say here in the
Mm.
UK.
Recently, you worked again at Dirk's Studios after many years, and would like to know what's your relationship with Dieter like nowadays, and if you plan to work with him again in the future.
Yeah, we have a great relationship. It's always a lot of pleasure to be there. We haven't worked together for so many years, and there came a point where I was planning this really big new project called the Alpha Experience, which is going to take place this year, and that's working with orchestras and rock musicians and opera singers and rock singers. And I felt that I didn't want to be the producer for that. I wanted someone else to help me with that. And I got to meet Dieter again almost by chance because we had a concert there, and which he didn't organize, somebody else organized it, but we got on so well. So I had the idea, well, why shouldn't I ask Dieter? Because he's, of course, top league producer and he can certainly bring something to the table which is very valuable, and he hears things that I don't hear here. His ear is different, you know, and it always makes sense what he says, because some people, when they open their mouths, when they talk about music, maybe it's not on your wavelengths and you wouldn't want to work with that person. But Dieter will always give you a really great advice in terms of music, because he's got such a musical ear and he's just a great producer, you know. So that's why I asked Dieter. And the first thing we're doing together is actually pretty much the last track that we did back then together when I left the Scorpions, and that's Cesar Sharon, because I wrote this big orchestra arrangement, which is like 15 minutes long. The beginning is identical to the original song, but then it branches out into a completely new territory. And I started recording it at Dieter's studio recently. I recorded the guitars and bass, and we've got most of that. We're still going to record the orchestra, and hopefully have that finished soon.
Talking about another project, a few years ago you went back to Sun Plaza Hall in Tokyo and played a very special concert with Rudolf Schenker, with Rudy Lenners. Do you have plans to release this material?
Yes, I don't have concrete plans at the moment. It's all on our computer disk. We recorded everything. I was very happy with the parts of the concert where Rudolph played, but there were some songs earlier in the program that I wasn't so happy with, the way they turned out. So I'm not sure how to release that stuff. I don't know if I want to release everything like that or if I want to edit it down. Whatever it is, it's labor intensive. It's not something I can do in 5 minutes. And so at the moment, it's not an issue.
Back in many years ago, in October 1979, with Electric Sun, played twice in a German prison in Cologne. I think it's Klingelput. What did you think about it? Did you think this was different, maybe fun, or was this place you prefer?
Yeah, it was certainly different. I had never played in a prison before. It's actually a very famous German prison in the center of, or I don't know if it's in the center, but it's in Cologne. And I think this came about through a host of a radio show for Radio Luxembourg. I'm not quite sure anymore if it was that radio station, but it was something to do with that. We played two shows on that evening. One was for the female inmates, and then there was one for the male. They were separated. Don't ask me why, but maybe for obvious reasons. But it was certainly something that you don't forget. You know, it was kind of very strange. And I remember taking pictures. Also, we went into some of the cells, yeah, with the inmates. It was eerie. Yeah, the only time we played in the prison. There was talk about playing Alcatraz at some point, but it never happened so far.
Is still on the Scorpion subject, Uli. You once said that it was a mistake not to have joined the American tour before leaving Scorpions. So, what do you think that would have been different if you had gone on that tour with the band?
Well, I think it was a mistake strategically from my perspective, because when I first came to America, which then was 1985, it's not that I had to start from the beginning. We were packing the audiences, but I think I would have made my solo career easier if I had stayed with the Scorpions to do the first American tour, because the first American tour was already on the table at the time of Tokyo Tapes, and Klaus and Rudolf tried to persuade me, and I said no, because I wanted to do Electric Sun, you know, and at that time that felt like the right decision to me. But afterwards I realized it would have made my life a lot easier in America if I had stayed on for one more tour, maybe one more album, you know, with EMI. But it is what it is, you know.
All right, we have one more question for you then, Uli, as we start to wrap up the interview now. So I don't know if you know, but I worked on the translation for David's book, The Other Side of the Show.
That was you.
Yeah. And so I remembered when
You
we booked
didn't write it in English.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did the version in English of his book. He wrote it in
You
Portuguese.
did English. I thought he wrote in English, so he wrote it in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and then I did the version in English.
All right, so that was you.
So,
you were cheating, David. I thought your English.
No, he wasn't cheating. He wasn't cheating. He wasn't cheating. He's a good boss. He's my boss now.
Patricia is a teacher of English and was in good hands. Yeah.
Well done. Okay. So what is the question?
He was my boss for a couple of years, actually. No, I remember when we were working on the book, and the book has lots of stories about you, and many of them happened in Brazil, right? When David was working with you as well. So I would like to know from you, like, what are some good memories that you've had here in the country, and is there anything that you would still like to live, to experience in Brazil?
I've experienced many highlights in Brazil. I always really enjoy being in your country. I love the audiences, beautiful audience every night, wherever you go, you know. And that makes a big difference. Very welcoming and a very musical audience. And I also like the cities a lot. I love Rio. You know, I mean, going up to the Jesus statue for all of us was really an amazing experience. I would love to go there again. That was really, really nice. The entire vibe and the view. I don't think I've ever seen a view as nice as that. Sao Paulo is quite different, but I've walked a lot in that city as well, because I love taking long walks when I'm on tour and you know, in the daytime. There's always this park and what's the town in the middle, David?
Goiânia.
Exactly. I always walk in that park. There's a park in the middle of that town. And it's quite magical. It's got a big lake with very big fish and terrapins and turtles. I like walking there.
But you've never been in Manaus, right?
No,
In the
no,
Amazon.
no. I'd love to go there. I mean, see what's still left after Bolsonaro. You know, I mean, let's hope that stops now. We're so concerned about that more and more is being chopped down every year. But I hope that will stop. Will that stop now?
Yes, there are big plans to make it stop as soon
Yeah.
as possible. Yeah.
Please, yeah, please.
I don't know if you saw, but yesterday we had a couple new ministers taking office. One of them is actually a
Maybe.
native Brazilian.
Yeah, no, it's very encouraging and it's absolutely great. So let's hope that this is a new beginning, because the Amazon is not just important for Brazil, but for the whole world. If we lose that, then we lose everything. So every tree is important and needs to remain standing, every single tree, because once they're gone, it's impossible to regrow them. And all the animals that are there, it's like, well, I don't need to tell you, you know it. So no, I would love to go there. Yeah. No, we've only played very few cities. We played Curitiba. Yeah, you were there. That was nice too. But I'd like to go and visit much more of your country. The problem is that because the economical situation is so difficult in South America, the promoters, they tend to only touch the very biggest shows, but the smaller tours are very difficult to finance. And that's why we're not playing there so often. If it was more easy, I would go there every year. I would play every year, like I do in Europe. But your country is so big, and South America, every show you need an airplane to fly there. When we play in Germany, France, England, we travel by car or bus, and it's easy, but you can't do that in South America. That's a big problem logistically. But I mean, we have now booked a North American tour for this year for September. That's going to be nice. We will see if there is a potential to maybe come to your country for a few shows as well, on the back end of this. But so far, this is not yet concrete. I know there's some interest there, so let's leave it at that. Fingers crossed. I would love to come back.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows you play in Manaus and Salvador next time?
Yeah, well, David, you make it out.
I don't know.
Right.
But I think the things getting better from now. Maybe who knows in next years.
Good. It's a new beginning, and the shadow has been lifted, and the darkness recede. Yeah. So I can already tell this. But
absolutely.
It's important that everybody needs to stay positive and now get out of this valley into the sunlight again, into the other sunlight, not the real sun. You've got it anyways.
No, we're absolutely looking forward to it.
Yeah, great.
All right, Uli.
So thank you very much. Thanks for all your lovely questions. There were some, and sorry for being so explicit with the question with the book. It's difficult to explain in a few sentences. In fact, I have not found a way to do it yet. Maybe if I have a few more interviews, I'll be able to put it into one sentence. like maybe take it or leave it or something like that.
No, I mean, we really appreciate you being so thorough and giving us all this information. It's like Roberta mentioned, we know this been in the works for such a long time, so obviously it wouldn't be something simple to talk about.
Exactly.
That's great. So thank you, Uli. Hope to see you in Sunday. I will try to rush a bit to be at home in the time. So thank you, Roberta and Larissa.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Nice
Thank you.
See you whenever.
Ciao.
And see you hopefully, David, with the Patreon.
Yeah, I will try.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.